Hi, I'm Heather Noel, creator of The Giving Game. Today's lesson is about patterns. To get a sense of this, imagine a spiral staircase that is going up maybe 10 stories, just up and up and up and up, and you're standing at the bottom looking up. And as you climb this staircase, you have more and more perspective looking down. Only our staircase is going to be an infinite staircase that goes on and on and on. Here's what Panache Desai says. When we discover a pattern, a repetitive cycle in our lives, our first impulse is to try to break it. But our patterns are there for a reason. They're meant to teach us something important. Eventually, what we really want is to get to a place of appreciating our patterns. Because regardless of how we perceive it in the moment, everything that happens in our life is a catalyst for change and growth. When you feel as if you've tripped and fallen on the same exact step over and over again, whether that step is financial turmoil or heartbreak or disappointment or lust, you are in fact on a new and different step, on a higher flight of stairs each and every time. With every breath, you are making your way up that infinite staircase. With each step, we are able to recognize and appreciate that we are never passing through the same moment twice. So within a few breaths of where you fell over, you are already fresh and new. You're constantly in a new place of awareness and experience. So we're all familiar with common themes that go through our lives. It can be dating the same person over and over or marrying them again and again. It might be financial, where you find yourself stuck in the same rut, just being able to barely pay the minimum on your credit card, overdrawing your bank account. It can be a repeating health issue that just seems to go on and on. Now, the best way to understand a pattern is to have some perspective. So you might look back at something from childhood. For instance, look at children in kindergarten. There are certain common patterns and themes with kindergartners, and we don't expect them to be any different than they are. And we know that's a part of being a kindergartner, is to be going through these certain patterns. And by the time they're in second or third grade, many of those patterns are gone and they have new patterns. So just recognize that as you move through one set of patterns, you bring on another set of patterns. So you never ever are without patterns. So when you get a bit older, like imagine someone that you dated in high school, that you were very attracted to, that you really wanted to be with, then you have a particular experience, and 5-10 years later you look back and find that that type of person has no appeal. Maybe you were attracted to someone who really needed your help or needed healing, and you put yourself into that, and then you recognize the downside of that, the dark side of trying to be the helper and the fixer, and you learn, oh, I cannot help or fix anybody. Now, you're on a very different step at this point. And the reason that we tend to judge ourselves around the patterns is we think, oh, here, I've done it again, I'm dating the same guy again. But in fact, if you really look at any pattern you have like that, you'll notice that it did change each time. There was a slightly different version of what you were learning. And as you really let yourself recognize and embrace what you were learning, you'll realize that each step that you've taken has been really important in terms of who you are now. And that's why when you really accept and allow and recognize that these patterns are not only important, you are the pattern is you. And that's easy to see if you look at something like a snowflake. There's the pattern. And as you pull up and away from it, you can see it more and more clearly than if you're too close to the pattern. Like from the perspective of being right up close to a snowflake, it might look more like a maze. But when you pull up, all of a sudden you can see the beautiful pattern. So one way that you can see this beautiful pattern in your own life is to take something that's going on for you right now and imagine yourself 10, 20 years in the future looking back at yourself. So in the same way that you've imagined going back into your childhood, notice the love and compassion that you have for yourself as a small child, and how that child has a hard time understanding what's really going on from their perspective. But as an adult, you can bring that perspective to this child that you were. Well, it's the same thing with your future self. Imagine calling in your future self and ask your future self to help you understand the pattern that you're in right now. And you can even take a moment and write that down and play with it. Play with it like a game. What you're going to do is say, well, if I knew what my future self would want me to know, it would be, and let yourself just make it up. And you'll know if you're tapping into what you might be calling your future self, because it will have the same loving compassion that you feel for yourself when you were a child. And if there is a sense of humor and kindness in the message, you're tapping into an aspect of you that sees the bigger picture. And whether you call it your future self or your higher self or whatever you want to call it, there is a perspective that's higher up on that infinite staircase that can absolutely see you in this moment and tell you what you need to know. So how do you recognize patterns that are more subtle? Because when you're in a pattern, you often can't see it. But there will always be a mirror that is coming back to you. So look at anything in your life that causes you an upset or discomfort, and just see if you can take that mirror to help you see something about yourself. So for instance, if you always pick emotionally unavailable partners, let yourself look at that aspect in you. In what way are you emotionally unavailable? Because if you were fully emotionally available, you would not be attracted to someone who's not emotionally available. And you can apply this to anything. Your finances, your health, anything. Let yourself look at what it is that your finances mirror to you about your own beliefs, or your health mirrors to you about your beliefs about your health. And you want to do this lovingly. You want to take responsibility without going into a feeling of guilt or remorse or how come I haven't gotten this better yet. You can feel pain without suffering. Only you can make yourself suffer. And the more that you are willing to be present to your pain and breathe into it and feel what you feel, the sooner it can release and allow you to flow into your own life with awareness. It is awareness that will allow you to live more courageously, more lovingly, and with a sense of freedom. So as you begin to see where your patterns are, you will notice that you're standing at a fork in the road. So you become consciously aware, oh, I'm about to date somebody who's the same type of person I dated before. Is this really the way I want to go? Or I'm about to make the same financial choice that I always make, but I can actually make a different choice this time. Or maybe I'm following a common pattern with my health. I've always done this. I've always taken this particular medication, and I keep having the same results. Maybe I should research a little bit. Maybe I should find out what is the emotion underlying this disease, this dis-ease, this lack of ease that I feel. Maybe there's another solution. Maybe I could look at my diet. Maybe there's something else I haven't considered. If you will do that, then the pattern will reveal to you that as you're aware of the pattern, it opens up your choices. If you're unaware of the pattern, you're stuck in the pattern. If you can recognize, for instance, that you keep doing the same thing over and over again because you want stability, then you'll begin to recognize that that fear has been suffocating you, stopping you from living the life that you want to live. So you first would recognize that you have a choice. You're at a fork in the road. Are you going to keep doing the same thing that you've been doing over and over? Or are you going to step out of your comfort zone? Try something new, see what happens. Look at all the people you know who are safe. They live a safe life, but they're not really alive. And then look at how you do that, if that's what you do. Panache Desai says time is a mental construct. The dimension of energy and spirit is timeless. We are living our lives all at once, and because of this, we are able at any given moment to access all that we are. We are able to tap into our higher selves, to access greater connectivity, greater love. Now, if you have listened to The Game Changer, you'll really understand this concept of time as a mental construct. It's very much like the idea that if we are living life inside a virtual reality and we are born into that virtual reality, then it's easy to understand that time is a mental construct. And the idea that we are living our lives all at once suddenly makes sense, because the entire program is already intact within the game of life that you're playing. Any choice you could possibly make is already there, and that's why we have access to everything all at once. What we call past, present, and future is in fact available all at once. And it's easy to see that from this perspective. So now take the idea of this infinite spiraling staircase and understand that you can choose the perspective from the top step looking down. You can choose to see yourself that way. You don't have to be limited by what you think is your mental scope in this moment. You have access to everything all at once. And the next thing is to recognize that we are meant to trip and fall. That is part of the process. So you have to teach yourself to simply trust the fall. Let it happen. It's okay. Pick yourself up, dust yourself off. And especially when you're going to pick a different route, especially when you're standing at that crossroads where in one direction is what you've always done and in the other direction is the unknown, if you can trust that you are going to fall and that it's okay and that you're just going to keep going, then you can start to take those steps out of patterns that are causing you discomfort, and you're going to begin to create new patterns. And the patterns that don't work for you going forward, you will then get to choose again and again whether that's one you want to keep or that's one you want to let go of. So you have to learn to trust that there will always be patterns and you will always have a choice. You can't get it wrong. Just like a child who is learning to walk isn't getting it wrong because they fall down, because they keep picking themselves up and they keep trying again. And that's how the pattern works. And now they have a new pattern. They've gone from the crawling pattern to the walking pattern, then they move into the running pattern. So it's one pattern after another, and the pattern is you. So see the pattern as a blessing. Let it all be okay. And the whole spiraling staircase, the spiral of your life, is really like your own sacred geometry. It's like you're living in this sacred geometry, in the sacredness of you. There is nothing in your journey that is not a pattern. So love and bless all of it.